Welcome to another lesson on Lunch with the Lord. I'm Pastor Mark. We're continuing our study in Philippians chapter 4, but before we begin, Jeremiah 15:16, Thy words were found, and I did eat them, and thy word was unto me the joy and rejoicing of my heart. Now, as we saw last lesson in chapter 4, verse 12, Paul says, I know both how to be abased and I know how to abound. And we saw that both words for know are in the perfect tense, meaning Paul had a completed knowledge, a finished knowledge on how to be abased, which we saw means to be humbled. He received the action of being humbled, and how to abound. And abound is in the present tense, which means that Paul, even while he was in prison, learned how to be abound with God. I learned how to be abased, to have nothing, and I've learned how to abound and to have everything. All the sufficiency of God, even while I'm here in this prison. And then he says here, everywhere and in all things I am instructed, both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. Now, this Greek word for instructed is mueo, okay? And it's in the passive voice. And in the Old Greek, this Greek word mueo meant to initiate someone into the secret teachings of the pagan mystery religions. Okay? Paul here is saying that he received, because muneo is passive voice. Paul says, everywhere and in all things I am instructed. It's passive voice. He received the action of being instructed. And again, who was producing that action of instructing Paul? Of course, it was God. So God was the teacher, Paul was the student, and he says, I have been instructed. Paul received initiation into the secret teachings of the Lord on both how to be brought low and how to have an exceeding abundance, regardless of where you are, what you're doing. And Paul received this instruction. It was the secret teachings of God. It's teachings that the world doesn't understand. And you're an example of that. Because as you live your life and as you go through good times and bad times, and yet you remain constant in your faith to God, in your trust to God, as you live your life, the world looks at you and they say, how do you do it? How can you remain true to God and strong in the Lord while you have no money, while you have no job, while you have no husband or wife? And yet, how do you remain faithful and true to God when you have all of these things? It seems like it doesn't matter how you are. You're always strong in the Lord. I don't understand it. And that's what the world says. And it's because these are the secret teachings of the Lord to his children. The world doesn't understand it. The world can't comprehend this kind of life, because when you have no money, the world teaches you you're supposed to be depressed and angry and hateful or whatever. And when you have lots of money, you're supposed to be happy and cheerful. I mean, you see it on TV everywhere. When people have money, they're happy. They're going on vacation everywhere. When they don't have any money, they're angry. They're mad. They're committing all kinds of crime and whatever. And yet the Christian has a whole different approach, because we trust in the sufficiency of God, and we rely upon him. And this is And you know why? Because we've been in the same school as Paul has. We had the same teacher. God is our teacher, and we are receiving his teachings on being humbled, receiving his teachings on having an abundance. We're receiving instruction from God. And this is what Paul says. He says, I am instructed. I have received this teaching, both how to be full, how to have lots of food in my belly, and yet how to have no food in my belly. I've been taught by God both how to abound, have everything, and yet how to have nothing, to how to suffer need, to be in need of things. Paul said it doesn't matter. I've been through God's schooling. I've been through the college of God, and he's taught me in this life how to have everything and nothing, but yet to be sufficient upon him, to be trusting in him and relying upon him. And now verse 13. And verse 13 says, I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. Now, we've heard this verse read many times, and we have to read this verse in the context of what Paul has said in verses 11 and 12. We can't take this verse and pull it out of context and use it how we want to. We use this verse according to the context of verse 11 and 12. And this verse has been used by Christians ever since it was penned by Paul to encourage Christians that they can do anything for God. You see it everywhere, plaques or papers and posted on people's walls, Christians' walls or whatever, on the back of the car, a bumper sticker or whatever. And you see this verse everywhere. But if we read it according to context, it'll expose what this verse means. Be careful. As a Christian, listen, be careful. Do not be like the humanists today who teach people to believe in yourself, or you can be anything that you want to be, right? Believe in yourself. You see it and you hear it everywhere. Believe, right? Believe in yourself. Sports players, yeah, man, I believed in my other players. I believed in him, and he got cured of cancer. He can do anything, right? You believe in yourself. You can do anything you want to do, right? Well, listen, this kind of teaching is a self-help, self-promoting, self-oriented teaching. And nowhere in this world system, when they say believe in yourself, believe in yourself, believe in this, nowhere will you ever hear God's name or God's will mentioned. It's all about self. What else is it going to be? The world is rejecting God, so it's not going to say believe in God. Of course it's going to say believe in yourself. You have the ability. Believe in your human body, in your human intellect. Believe in yourself. And what's sad is that in the Christian community, they take that same premise and they use it amongst Christianity. And this is what they say. The Christian says, I will do this or that for you, God, right? You'll see how good of a servant I can be for you, God. You watch me. God, take it easy up there. Just look down from heaven. You watch. You watch how good of a servant I can be. How many souls I can win for you, right? Watch what I can do for you, God. I can do anything. What, isn't that what the Bible says? Paul said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right? So I guess I can. And that's sad, because the Christian community should not be occupied with self-help. All right? Beware. Do not use this verse to pioneer on a self-oriented, self-focused life. As Christians, we are not to be self-oriented, self-promoting, self-focused on ourselves. We are to be Christ-focused, Christ-oriented. Okay? You are to be dependent upon Him. Paul's not saying, I'm in verses 11 and 12, I've learned from God how to be Christ-sufficient, and then in verse 13, oh, I know how to be self-sufficient. That's not what he's saying. In context, we have to read this verse. In its context, this verse is teaching us that Paul learned how to live in every kind of circumstance and still properly respond to God because of what he learned in verses 11 and 12. All right? So please, don't take this verse out of context to try to build some Christian up because they're feeling sad. You can do all things through Christ. Yeah, that's true. Through Christ. If he is the supplier, he's sufficient. He's the one doing the teaching. Remember, we're just the student. And Paul said, I have learned in whatever state that I'm in, I've learned that I can do all things. I can be hungry and through Christ. I can have all the food in the world in front of me through Christ. I've learned how to have lots of money and have no money through Christ, right? Paul says, I can do all things. That means I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Because now I can do I can live in any situation, and now I'm Christ sufficient. Not self-sufficient, I'm Christ sufficient. So, as a Christian, don't take this verse and start applying it to yourself and start getting into a works-oriented relationship with God. Okay? Because that's not what it's for. It's to be dependent. This verse was penned as being Christ sufficient, as being dependent upon the Lord. All right? Now, verse 14. Notwithstanding, you have well done that you did communicate with my affliction. Now, this Greek word for communicate is soon kokoneo, okay? And soon means with, and kononeo means communicate with, to share with. So it means to communicate with someone, to share with someone. So Paul here says, notwithstanding, you have done well that you did communicate with my affliction. Even though Paul learned from God how to have nothing and how to be full, he thanks the Philippians for sharing with him and providing for him while he was in prison. It's not like Paul is going to say, oh, thank you for this gift, Epaphroditus, but I don't want it. I'm depending upon the Lord. No, Paul was strong in the Lord, and he said, you know what? I'm going to receive this gift from you as a gift from God. God blessed you, and God moved in your heart to supply a need that I had here in prison. And you know what? Thank you so much that you heard from God and you supplied it. Now, I'm thanking you for responding to God's love, and I'm thanking God that he's providing. I know that the ultimate provider is God, but thank you so much that you provided for me, right? Someone provides for you. Maybe someone gives you a car that you need. Someone gives you food. Someone gives you something. You can receive it. Don't say, well, I'm trusting in God. I don't want it. Take it back. I don't need that. I'm trusting in God to give me everything, right? No, well, maybe God moved upon their heart to provide you with this thing. Food, clothes, right? A vehicle, something that you need in your life to function and to live, and see it as coming from God and respond in that way. All right? Until next lesson, walk with the Lord. I know he walks with you.